Tony Maws, chef owner of the Kirkland Trotter and Craigie main restaurant. I'm just going to show you how to get even more power pack into your Thanksgiving gravy. A lot of people, what they do is they roast their whole bird, it's in the pan, and then they pour off some of the fat and they have the juices and they make a gravy out of that. And that's an awesome place to start. I'm going to show you an alternative if you have a little bit of extra time, and this can also be made a couple days ahead. I'm going to make a gravy base. What I've done is we're going to start with some turkey wings, some turkey necks, and then also some giblets, the heart. I go to Ronnie Savinor, and awesome butcher, and he's got a lot of these things laying around for Thanksgiving. This is just where all the flavors at. My grandmother would take the hearts and the giblets out of the gravy, chop them up, and fold them back in. There you have your giblet gravy. So here what I've done is I've just cut a whole bunch of necks and wings together. Okay, boom. And then we're going to have the giblets, so we're going to cut these guys up too, get them into our mix. I'm going to show you step by step how to make this gravy. And this is also just kind of a good sauce making technique in general, how to make a good sauce. So the other components that we're going to need for our gravy today: carrot, celery, shallot, garlic, thyme and bay. This is a bouquet of some herbs. It's got thyme, parsley, sage in there, bay leaf. You don't have to do it this way, but it's all tied up in a leek because I had leeks laying around. Also some button mushrooms. If you can have button mushrooms and some other mushroom stems, or even some, if you only had dried mushrooms, that's a good way of going about that too. So I'm going to cut these into a nice dice. And when you're making a sauce, everything needs to be cut in the same size, so it's going to brown nice and evenly. Instead of just like running your knife through and having odd cuts or even circles, you're not going to get the same sauce. One of the reasons, not a whole lot of sides to this, basically just two, so you're not going to get as much browning. Two, you've got different sizes here, so this is going to cook way before that, so you're going to get different flavors out of it, and this is going to turn to mush before that does. And it doesn't have to be a perfect dice, but the more even and the more sides you can have, the better your sauce is going to be. I like using shallots instead of onions in my sauce work. Not quite as sweet, good flavor, better sauce. With sauce work, what I like to do for my garlic is I like to keep the garlic with the skin on. In French, it's called en chemise, literally with its shirt. This way, the garlic's not going to burn. Good amount of vegetables there, and then our mushrooms, so we keep whole. Roast them as well. That's what we've got ready for our sauce. Our bones, our vegetables. Then of course the next thing you need to make good sauce is good stock. Stock where you really get a lot of collagen in there. Look how thick that is, and that's just really great texture and really great flavor. If you have to use store-bought stock, I get it. Not all of us have this accessibility, but if you can make your own, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. Plus, it's not so hard, and it makes your house smell great. We've got our pot on the stove. I understand at home your pot's probably going to be a little smaller. Doesn't matter. It's the same technique. Let's get our pot nice and hot. I'm going to use duck fat. If all you had was oil, canola oil or something like that, that's fine. So I'm going to try to get some richness that I'm looking for in this gravy with some fat. Get this nice and hot. You definitely want to make sure that this is smoking, so when we add our turkey parts, it really sizzles and sears. If you have a house fire alarm, you might want to unplug it. Alright, so a couple key things to our sauce making. We have a couple kits, what I like to call kits. We've got the bone kit, we've got the veg kit, and I've got the tool kit. Something like this that can really be good for scraping the pan. Essential. You never know when you're going to need something slotted, something whole. I'm always packing my scissors. I'm always packing the spatula. Okay, now we're going to add some of our bones. That's the noise you're looking for. So the key thing to this step right now is to let it sit. Don't jostle it. We're going to get good colors, good sear on these bones. Let it go. Alright, we've got some good even browning, it's not high heat, and now we're going to give this a good little stir. We're going to begin browning some other areas. This good sauce making requires patience. cook things, you always want to peek and you always want to look. Getting this good browning right in there. See that? That's nice browning. But now we need a lot of it. That's what we need, lots of it. Alright, so here we are. We're getting some good color on these bones. It's about time that we start adding some of our vegetables. Give it a little stir. You can see in this pot how we're getting this little brown stuff on the bottom. That's the goal. That's what you want. This right there is called the fond. The more of these caramelly bits stuck to the bottom, the more flavor we're going to have. A little bit of whole butter to it. Maybe a little bit more than a little bit. The reason why I'm going to add the fat, this is all going to come out later. But twofold. One, butter's going to melt and brown. You're going to have a really nice brown butter flavor to everything. Another reason for adding some of the fat is because we're going to make like a roux in this pot. Flour has to bind with some fat, so the more flavorful fat I have in here, the better the flavor of the whole gravy is going to be. We're going to pour off the fat later on, so it's not all going to stay in there, so don't go freaking out about the amount of butter in it. I'm going to add this big bouquet. If you didn't want to get all fancy pants and dress it up in a leek, just adding some herbs at this point is fine too, because we're going to strain it all out anyways. Sometimes we as cooks get a little overzealous. Can't smell because you're looking through a camera. It's too bad for you, but if you make this recipe, you're going to smell it. The awesomeness. Intoxicatingly good. The worst thing that can happen at this point, with all this time and energy that we're giving to this awesome sauce, is that if we burn the pan, then it's going to turn everything bitter. There's no way of getting that back. If we burn that fond, it's just never going to be the same. So take care, pay attention. Other things we could add to make this gravy bomb, even more bomb. If you had some bacon scraps, terrific in there. Any sort of other stocks that you have at home, anything like that would be great. Keep any sausage fat around for the roux, that could be really tasty too. Let's check it out. Oh yeah, there we go. How you like me now? I'm a carrot, color. Okay, so now we're going to add our flour, we're going to toast it up. And this is an important step. You're making a traditional brew, and you know, if you didn't want to add flour, you can still make the sauce, and we can thicken it with like arrowroot or cornstarch later on if you were looking to avoid any of the gluten. But for the moment of paying homage to the traditional, we're going to add some flour. Not too much. Stir this in. Now your pan's hot. The flour is going to get all sort of good and gloppy. You got to pay a lot of attention so it does not burn. So we're going to get a little toast on this flour. Just paying a lot of attention to it. Then we're going to deglaze with some booze. That's right. I said booze. Let's get to the topic of what we're going to put in there. Honestly, whatever you have handy. If you're a whiskey kind of person, add whiskey. If you're scotch, you can do a little scotch, although the peatiness might be a little strong. I'm going with the Armagnac, and I'm going with the tawny port root. Why? Just in that kind of mood. First, we're going to hit it with the yak. That's what we call it, the yak. Reduce that down. At the same time, while it's reducing, we're also going to go back into our pot. Now that we've added some liquid, it's really allowed me to get some moisture in there so I can see I can scrape up those bits. Why am I scraping them? Well, not to get them out, to get them loose, so that when I add the rest of my stock and stuff later, it all dissolves in the stock. I don't want it just stuck to the bottom of the pan. So I added the Armagnac, and now I'm going to add some of the tawny port. I always add the higher alcohol first and let that cook off. Yeah, see how I'm doing here? I'm going to go in there, clean the bottom of that pan. This is where the wooden spoon really comes handy. So this is basically what we call sec. In other words, there's no more liquid in the pot. It's dry. Okay? And we keep on cooking this just for another couple seconds because more of the juice from this turkey is going to come out and make a bigger fond. The more fond I can develop, if I'm scraping it off, the more flavor I'm going to have. Deglaze with some stock, but I'm not just going to pour all the stock in there. I've already deglazed with the booze, and I'm just going to add a little bit of stock as another way of getting more of the fond off. And I want this stock to actually reduce down until it's sec again. So I'm going to do a couple different things at the same time while I'm doing this. I'm going to create a whole other fond, so adding more dimension, more flavor to my gravy. At this point, I'm also, in a way, sweating out the bones, letting them caramelize on the bottom of the pan. So it's just a way of really intensifying what's going to be a terrific sauce. And with the flour in there, it's going to caramelize pretty easily, so you got to pay attention to it. Don't lose it. You can do this a couple of times and help develop the color and the character and the flavor. See, so we're starting to stick again. Awesome. Look at that. Okay, so we're going to do that whole stock thing one more time. A little bit. So again, in here we've got our turkey necks, turkey wings, our giblets, our heart, our vegetables, our soul. We have tawny pork, we've got armagnac, we've got stock. I'm getting excited. How much stock do you add? Let's let this melt. Let's let this melt. And we'll see if we need any more. Basically, it's just to cover and then some. The other thing about this technique is we've really already cooked a lot of the flavor, gelatin, collagen out of these bones through these reductions. I'm going to taste it after it comes to a simmer. It's not going to take much more than that. Then we'll strain it and reduce it to where we want it. Now we're in the simmering stage. So a couple of things. It's just coming up. You can see it's beginning to get frothy, some little bubbles. I always keep a ladle and some water, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to skim off a lot of the fat and the froth. Okay? And the water helps separate it all. So I'm not just like working with a dirty spoon. So it's another little kitchen trick. And then this froth, these are just impurities. We just want to get them out of there. You can see how they're beginning to accumulate on top. So just skimming the top like that. And then dumping it right in that water. I don't want it to boil too hard. Constant simmer is good. If it boils too hard, it's gonna boil all of the fat right back into the sauce. So like I said, we're gonna bring this up to a simmer. We're just gonna cook this out for a little bit, depending on the size of the bones too. So turkey bones are a lot thicker. If I was doing the same technique with chicken bones at home, I'd probably strain it already because they're a lot smaller. What I'm gonna do is probably cook this for about 20 minutes or so. And don't be afraid to taste. Your mouth is your best instrument when it comes to cooking, right? So people always say, how long, how long? Honestly, taste it. Tap it so that it goes through without really having to push on everything. Make your gravy, or this step of the gravy ahead, you can pick the meat in the neck and put that into your stuffing. That's really good. I love me some neck. Now we put this back on the burner, and we're going to reduce this down to the consistency we want. So we've reduced this down a little bit, and you can certainly take it further or add a thickener if you wanted to, if you wanted it a little thicker. But with everything that we've got going on with stuffing and potatoes and Brussels sprouts and sweet potatoes, I'm keeping it a little bit on the light side. So I'm just going to strain them one more time. You can see it has some nice viscosity to it. I'll show you in a second. I'm talking about. Happy Thanksgiving. Must love your sauce. I'm on stage, yeah!